market really. And we'll talk about that it's for this market because this is every market, any market. It's your skills, your mindset, and your actions. So what I want you guys to type in the chat is, for you personally, is it your skills, your mindset, your actions, all three market really? And there's me on YouTube. Type in the chat which one or two or three you think you need to focus the most on and grow the most with, so that you can crush it through the winter and into 2024 and beyond, right? Forever, really. And we're asking that with intentionality, and more to come on that. But again, it's skills, mindset, and actions or activities, whichever word you want to use to look at it. Which do you think you need the most help and growth with? Okay, and that being said, I see answers coming in, so thank you. Keep answering. I'll pose the question again, and we'll make sure we're getting all your information gathered back. And I would like to know if anybody has a bucket to fill to start us off today. Amy Bloom.
I have one for you, Sarah. I want to thank you for bringing so many great opportunities to our office between your Monday and Wednesday calls. Yesterday afternoon, we were on a call. I don't remember what you call it. Skill something or other. The tools and the simple conversations that you bring, the simple actions, kind of like our own little mini playbook, so to say. It's brilliant. And if you guys have not been on these calls, whether you're a brand new agent and don't even have your license yet, or you've been in the business for 30 years plus like me, get on these meetings and calls with Sarah. They are invaluable. And I thank you for bringing that to us. It's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you, Amy. I am taking the compliment and appreciating it and not reacting inappropriately or spastically like I like to do. Yeah, it's Mondays and Wednesdays power prospecting with that's you need to get into action. That's one of your things. It's skills and action, actually. And I throw a little mindset in there as well. It's having you do the dang thing. Get to work, calls, texts, DMs, whatever you're doing. We are taking action on those calls. I actually wrote it down this morning. I think we had over 20 actual two-way conversations from our group, and it wasn't, we do coaching in between the 20-minute sessions. So they did another session. I didn't even tabulate that, and I didn't get everyone's results. We had at least 20 conversations in the group this morning that did turn into appointments. Not 20 appointments, some appointments from the 20. So that's Monday and Wednesday. It is 10:30 to noon. Thank you for that, Aim. And then on Tuesday, it's called Work Smarter. And I know that's not the most creative title in the world. The reality is the topic changes every week. This week, I walked you through step-by-step how to actually implement that seller survey in your business, how to take it, copy it, paste it, create it, and put it into action. So every week, we're going to do something else. I'll drop the nutshell here that I will not be here next week for all of those sessions. We will have other things that are coming to you. But if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to come. Next week, I'm on vacation with my family for fall break. So after that, we'll be back, and there will be other stuff on the calendar. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, Jacqueline helped me systematize and leverage so we can share it. I'm also going to tell you now, based off of the mastermind that just came out at noon, I'm sharing 3 slides and 1 text tip talking point from Jacqueline. The 3 slides I'm sharing are because the common conversations are people say they want to wait, or people say they want to wait for the market to dip, the interest rates to come down, whatever to happen. I have 3 slides that I'm sharing with you guys in the Facebook group. One is Gary Keller's slide of interest rates over time. Look at it, digest it, understand it. You guys, I just looked at it, and I'm going to tell you what, the interest rate on the slide at the end of, I'm going to pull it up and tell you exactly what it said. At the end of when Mega Camp took place, which was just in August, the interest rate over time, we were sitting at 6.6%. What's the interest rate today?
I think it's 7.5, I believe.
Oh, yep.
Right.
Thank you, Nick. Almost 8, 7 point, well, exactly. It's more. So when you look at that interest rate slide on the Facebook page, for anybody who wasn't in these calls, I want to make sure you understand the why and have a minute. Nobody be nervous. I'm still on time for the agenda. It's the interest rate slide because when people say, oh, we're going to wait. Amazing, Amy. Let's talk about waiting and what that looks like for you and what makes you think waiting, what will that look like? Don't make them wrong. Ask for curiosity and then show the facts. If you look at that interest rate slide over time, there is nothing in there to make us believe that we should see the interest rates plummet back down again. It is factual conversation. You should save it on your phone as a photo on your phone. You should have it in every conversation you're doing, every buyer session, every listing session you're going to. The other one is Gary Keller's home prices over time. That's the slanty chart. It shows the dips in the 08s. It goes up. It shows a little bit of a correction most recently, and then it's straight on. What you'll see is that it goes like this a little bit. You want to just look at it with facts with your people. The other one is Ashley's San Diego market stats over time. That one you can show them very specifically where they were waiting for the market. That happened. Let's just look at it and have the conversation. Those 3 slides. I actually also added Ashley's active listing inventory by price point from the last one. Now, yes, there'll be another one next month. If you want to grab that one, please do. I'm not waiting until the future. I'm sharing this with you today. So that, and then Jacqueline's text as well. It's going to be a lot. I'll explain it to you on Facebook. I wanted to say it here because these simple things that you put in your holster, so to speak, not that guns are funny, is going to help you be the local expert. And it's going to help you have a valuable, valid, relevant conversation with anyone you're talking to. Interest rates, home sales over time, and inventory. There's nothing else that matters. Got it? I'm not looking at chat. I'll look at it in a second. If anything there is pressing, I'm not ignoring you. I just don't see it yet. Okay, Evie, go to our upcoming events, please.
Yes, ma'am. Next week, we have our amazing Ashley Lund doing her in-person market stats. That's October 25th for our team meeting. So come, but do come in costumes. It is our yearly Halloween / potluck social hour, and we're going to combine and add a little bit of a bingo. And the bingo and potluck is happening right after the market stats event. So we will have a couple of prizes for the best costumes. Let's make it fun, and come bring in some appetizers to share with everybody. And I'll blast and add that on our Facebook event page, so you all can kind of time block that on your calendar. Also, in the spirit of our wellness committee, we are playing with the idea of bringing in a CPR training certification here in the office. So if anyone is interested, I'm going to put a real quick poll here just to give us an idea if anyone's there. So what we're trying to do is we're working with some of our S&P partners to see if they can help us with the fees associated, so it'll lowers down the cost for the individual registration. So I think it's one great tool to also add in your back pocket. We're talking about a life-saving procedure that that can come in handy at any point in time. So we'd love to bring that to the office. So just if you'll just take 1 second to actually click on the button and let me know. So just to give us an idea of how many would be interested in getting CPR certified.
Awesome, Evie. Thanks for the update, y'all. If you haven't done it, you definitely should. I had to do it as part of my education at one point in life, and it's a sombering thing to go through, and yet a skill that you want to have. God forbid you're in that circumstance. All right, get those votes in. Gosh, so many polls we're taking today. Some formal, some informal. Love it. David, I see you driving. Oh, did you stop driving? Thank goodness. So I'm going to be like, do not crash your car while you're on Zoom, please. All right, David from Hawthorne and Albatross. We love working with y'all. Welcome to today as our S&P Spotlight feature.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so I am done driving now. Thank you for the concern. I was just filling in, but yeah. Like always, Hawthorne and Albatross, we are always here looking to purchase homes, to renovate, have you guys represent us on the purchase, and also relist with you as well. Another thing is, if you guys would like to follow us on Instagram or Facebook, It's just Hawthorne and Albatross. That's a good way just to stay up on our off-market deals, projects we have going on. It's just a good way to keep tabs on us and what projects we have going around town. Also, we do have an off-market property in the Golden Hills area. Should be listed for 1.05 right now off-market. It does need renovating, but this is just an off-market deal that we have currently. So if anyone's interested, please just reach out to me. Yeah, and I think that's about it for me.
Sarah, you're muted.
My first time on Zoom. I want to just drop your cell phone in the chat so everyone can see it after it's gone. If they want to call you about the Golden Hill off market, 303
505 1058.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate you. We love the off market opportunity. And we will now call Facebook and Instagram combined Facegram. So thanks for that.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you guys.
Thanks, David. And Amy said she had a great experience with Hawthorne and Albatross. I know a lot of our agents have worked with Hawthorne and Albatross specifically, and you are going to get both the buy side and the relist. That is authentic and real, and they show up and put their money where their mouth is every time we've worked with them so far. So if you have a client for that Golden Hill property, get to it, reach out to David. And if you have other thoughts on getting, what that looks like, guys, is like, oh, I could get you a cash offer for the right property. Those are the kind of resources you're going to reach out to and be like, hey, is this something that would work for you guys, right? So follow them, reach out, and let's keep this party going. Thank you, David. Alicia,
have a good day.
Thank you. Oh, Robert, you're doing it. I see Team Alicia on top. Coaching and broker spotlight, my dear.
Hey, let's give a shout out to some people in the coaching program doing some great stuff. Congratulations on Team Alicia, Sam and Yanni. Opened another escrow with a buyer. They're in growth. And Monty closed on his own listing, which had him cap in the growth program, which means he's now getting 6 months of free coaching with Alicia. And then on Team Deborah, Gaga Newburn. Oh, I love this one. Both of them got these next two, got an outbound referral and growth. So that's mailbox money. And Abigail Eccles, brand new agent, got an outbound referral and launch. So for you launch agents out there, you can or brand new agents, don't think if you don't know anybody, you can still do referral business. All you got to do is connect your friend or family or whatever in any place in the US and earn some referral money. We got a few more minutes for property pitches, Sarah, so go back to you.
All righty, so I have a property to pitch on behalf of Marlon. Evie's going to put up a slide and give us the visual for 270 Ledgewood Lane in San Diego, California. I secretly wanted to be a game show host when I was younger, so let's see how this goes. We have a charming single-story home featuring 4 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms and a huge, fully paved and landscaped yard. New roof, kitchen, and luxury vinyl flooring throughout. First open houses are this weekend, October 21st and 22nd from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Open house opportunities might be available, to be determined. If you're looking for an open house and don't have one, there's Marlon's cell. Give him a call or a text and introduce yourself and say you're ready, willing, and able to host. If we don't have a price on that, do we?
It's $800K.
It's $800,000. So if you have a buyer who's looking for that, then it's $800,000, and let's get it done, y'all. Thank you for that. 619-410-7236. Okay. I'm just going to say, BB, we're early. Take the time and run with it, my friend.
Yeah, we're early. Hey, congratulations. You're on time today, Sarah.
It's the first for everything.
Hey, Metro. Glad to see you guys here. What are we up to, Evie? We're at 56. I guess people had a lot of stuff they needed to do today, but that's okay. It's not quantity, it's quality. Get yourself a little bonus for showing up to Broker Bob's actual risk management meeting for the month. Last week was a bonus because we had to talk about the NAR lawsuit and a few things and what to do to prepare. This time we're going to get into some stuff. So we're going to have a conversation. So without further ado, let me share my screen and I'll get into it. Did you guys know that today is National Cupcake Day, Chocolate Cupcake Day? So as you all know, your broker loves chocolate and he loves chocolate cupcakes. So if I was in San Diego and not Chicago right now, you'd be bringing me chocolate cupcakes, Ariana. So next year on this day, when I'm back, mark your calendar, bring broker Bob a chocolate cupcake on today. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, I'll give you a little hot topic from Risk Management Meeting, SAR. Guess what? We got a pop quiz coming up. And we're going to talk a little bit about commercial, real estate, and then I thought it'd be fun to take you through the anatomy of a lawsuit or mediation, what happens when it does happen. There's a few people on this call that have been through stuff like that, but everybody's always like freaked out. So I want to unfreak you out about if and when it does happen. And then if we have some time, well, the top 10 things to do and not doing real estate is a bonus. So we won't go into that. Okay. So here is what is important, and this is happening a lot. And Emily Holmes is on the phone. She's just had something recently happen. She was introduced to a buyer, and this buyer in particular was a referral from a friend of hers. Prior to being introduced to the buyer, or maybe it was after she was introduced, I can't remember the exact scenario, but anyway, you ever go to those webs? What was that?
You're right. It was prior. They saw it before I got introduced.
Okay, so prior. So you ever notice on Redfin and Zillow and Realtor.com, when the people are looking at listings, they can check this little box that says set up a showing time. And this is happening a lot right now. And what happens is those people that Redfin and Zillow and not Redfin, but Zillow and Realtor.com sell that showing time request to agents that are willing to pay money to get that as a lead. And so it creates a little bit of a challenge. And here's the challenge. So let's say I'm a buyer. I log on, I see this house I want to see. I click on the link to set up a showing time, and I meet an agent at that property. And I don't have a relationship with that agent. And in Emily's case, this agent also did not have this buyer also did not have a relationship with this agent. This agent was just the person that showed up. Now they talked in advance too over the phone and got a little 411 on what the buyer was looking for. And she showed this prospective buyer of the property and also took them to a few other properties in the neighborhood. But no BRBC was signed. However, there was agency created to some degree. And then what happened was afterwards, the buyers decided, well, I don't really want to work with this agent. I want to go work with somebody else because now I've been introduced to Emily Holmes and I heard she's just a rock star real estate agent in the San Diego market. That's who I really want to work with. Now, the challenge is there's some agency created, and there was one particular house that this buyer looked at with this agent that they got hooked up through, and they almost wanted to put an offer in on that property. And then the negotiations then began between Emily and this other agent because this buyer did not want to work with this other agent, but yet agency was almost created. And it could have ended up at the board where it would be a commission dispute. So here's what the point you need to know. If you did not come to last week's team meeting, we talked about the changes in buyer commissions. And in that meeting, I addressed the fact that the industry is going to change, and most buyers moving forward after it does change will need to be under a BRBC. So what you needed to do to prepare is to make sure you're really good at your buyer consultations and you get every buyer you're working with under a BRBC to help eliminate that. Now, if Emily wanted to go fight this commission dispute with this agent, if this buyer wanted to put an offer on this one particular property, we don't know how it would have turned out. The procuring cause has about 23 different scenarios that you have to answer. So my point on this is if you do come across a buyer that says, hey, I just happened to view a property with somebody that I clicked online on the Zillow website. I met this agent there. First and foremost, you need to ask the question, did you sign anything with that agent? You need to make sure that they have not signed anything that would put them under exclusive with that agent. So just be aware of that. It's going to happen a lot more. And I guess the best advice is get to the buyers before they click on those links. Or if you're working with a buyer, tell them not to click on those links to request a showtime. Okay. All right. Now let's move into the pop quiz. So now my trusted Vanna, Evie, is going to put up a pop quiz and 4 little questions. They're all just yes or no.
Can you see it, BB? Can you all see
Yeah,
it?
I can see it. If you guys can take some time to answer those 4 questions, I'll give you about maybe 60 seconds.
Everybody shaking that thing like you never did see. This back to jar, 'cause I'm gonna have to buy it tonight. Oh my God, body, look at that body shaking that thing like you never did see. This back to jar. Edit.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Has everybody had time to answer them? I think we're good. Evie, are we good?
We're about 70%, 72%,
70%.
70.
Boy, so many people. Don't overthink it. Just click. Click yes or no.
76%.
There's no grades being issued, so don't be afraid to answer wrong or right. Just participate.
Yeah, I'm not going to know whether you're wrong or who answered what anyway. So just speed right through it. And if you're not answering it, it's because you're probably not paying attention to the Brooker Bob risk management meeting. Can we end it?
Do you want me to end it? We're at 84% now.
84?
Yes.
Let's end it at 90% if we can.
Okay.
I have a feeling there are some people asleep at the wheel. Now, if you read the real estate bulletin put out by the Department of Real Estate, this actually was in the real estate bulletin. I know you all get that every month, or I'm sorry, quarterly, and you read that from beginning to end every week, every quarter. So I thought this would be a fun little thing to do, because I think it's important to remember some of the basics of real estate that we all tend to forget. All right, Evie, pull it up.
Got it. So do you want me to end it? Okay.
Now, do we see the results?
Yes. Let me.
There we go.
Can you see it? Okay. Oh, yay. Okay.
Yep, I can see it. So the first thing was, must a licensed person be present at an open house? 81% of you said yes. Here's the answer. While not expressly required, it is best to have a licensed individual present. An unlicensed person may assist licensee if they avoid any solicitation or negotiation with people who view the open house. And an unlicensed assistant may place signs, greet the public, hand out pre-printed materials provided by the licensee, or schedule appointments with the licensee. And during the open house, only a licensee may show the property, discuss terms and conditions of a possible sale, discuss the features of the property, the locations of schools or amenities, or engage in any other conduct which is used to induce the prospect into entering into a contract to purchase the property or retaining the agent for any licensed services. So kind of a vague answer, but yes, it's always best to have a licensed agent at the open house. Question number 2, on a simple sign that says open house 123 Sesame Street, is a license number required? 69% of you said yes. 31% no. Da, 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 da. The ones that said no are correct. Why? as long as there's no additional information on the sign, specifically, once a licensee puts his or her name or the brokerage name on a sign, then a license number must be included. So if you got open house signs that just say open house, blank, that's all it says, you don't have to have the required DRE information on there. But if it says your name on it, it also has to have your license number, as well as our license number, as well as your license number. Question number 3, can a licensee holding the open house indicate that families with children are discouraged, assuming it is not an approved senior housing community? 94% of you said no. Congratulations for those 94%. You cannot do that. You cannot discriminate based upon age. It's a protected class in the state of California and actually the US, unless it is in a what they call a protected approved senior housing complex, which is 55 plus. And number 4, finally, can a licensee holding an open house leave the home open for a while, leaving a sign that says back in 30 minutes, feel free to look around? 96% of you said no. The answer is leaving a home unattended could result in theft or damage to the residents, creating liability on the part of the licensee for negligence. So DRE strongly discourages a licensee from leaving an open house unattended. So remember that. Great job. You guys answered a lot of those questions right. Proud of you guys. So let's get back then to the presentation. Sorry, I have a little bit of cough today and I can't figure out why. Let's talk about commercial real estate. So I've invited Nikki Francis on the phone on our call today. Nikki, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Fantastic. So Nikki is our commercial director for Metro as well as Signature. And I wanted to bring her on today to talk about our commercial division, what it means to be involved in a commercial transaction. How do you get involved in that? Because here's what happens is all of you are licensed, mostly are licensed to sell residential real estate. Residential real estate is 4 units or less, single family. And then what will happen during the course of your lead generating and lead prospecting, because you're all doing that every day, you might come across a commercial deal. And then I get a phone call from you, say, Broker Bob, I have a client that wants to look for a commercial building. To which I then have to say, well, I'm sorry, you have to refer that business to the commercial team because it's a commercial transaction. Well, why? There's a lot more liability. It's different. It's not like selling a home. There's a lot more feasibility studies and land use studies that might go into place. So if you got a commercial building or commercial lot or a commercial lease, or sometimes in some cases land, if it's a big plot of land that developers want to put homes on. So without further ado, we're going to introduce Nikki. And while Nikki is chatting a little bit on commercial and what it takes to get involved, I'm going to drop in the chat box a PDF of what it costs to be a commercial agent as well, too, because there's a whole bunch of other fees that are involved to become a commercial agent. So Nikki, take it away.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for the time. I know I thank a lot of you for referring business over so that you're not leaving money on the table and you're also not putting the market center at additional risk. So I do have a little slideshow that I would run through, but I will spare you since we only have about 10 minutes. I'm going to run through things, and if you have any questions or want me to elaborate, you're more than welcome to connect with me afterwards, and I will also put this in the chat. So first and foremost, the difference between residential and commercial is pretty obvious, but ultimately it is residential R1 properties up to 4 units. Anything after 5 units and above becomes commercial. Commercial also encompasses buildings. So think residential houses, commercial buildings. Buildings are include anything such as industrial, office, retail, hospitality, multifamily, and land. Now, some of you are saying, well, I thought we could do land too. You can, as a residential agent, do land if it is zoned R1 and you can build a house on it, no problem. You know, if you need our help with that, great. But we're talking land that's more like 30 acres, 80 acres, things where they're going to be putting developments on it, or industrial properties is viewed very differently. One of the reasons we do this is additional risks in commercial real estate. So there are quite a few additional risks on the commercial side. Primarily NAR states that if you're not fully efficient in a particular field and you do that transaction anyway, and something goes south and we get sued, we as a brokerage are not covered. So our E&O insurance won't cover it, even if you've done one before somewhere else, or you have a brother that does it. If you're not proficiently actively doing commercial real estate, we as a brokerage can really take the hit for that. So sometimes I will get a call and I will ask, well, hey, I got this, I want to do it together. That also does not work because you're learning on your feet. So first and foremost, the priority is taking care of the client and taking care of you. We want the client to be happy and we want you to be paid for that referral. And you should view the commercial department as your partnership. So the best way to refer business, how to refer it and how to get paid is the best way is a three-way text. There's a couple of you are just on it. I got one from Cherie today. A few of you that have been sending them regularly. It's as simple as, hi client, meet my commercial partner, Nikki. Nikki, meet my client, so-and-so, connecting you two for your commercial discussion. Boom, that's it, simple. Then let me take it from there, because if you're trying to ask too many pre-qualifying questions, it sometimes muddies the water. You might answer inadvertently something that you're not sure of, and that can cause problems down the line. It also acts as proof that you sent the referral. So if there's ever any question, you've got that three-way text and we go back and I will refer back to those two and say, oh, that's that person sent me this. So it helps on both sides. Expenses for commercial, just off the cuff, there is an additional $200 divisional charge to be part of the division. There is about $950 I regularly pay for basic tools. I personally pay another $500 for expanded tools, $2,500 in training annually, and about $500 in conferences. So it's significantly different in terms of how we operate, negotiate. The contracts are different. There's a lot more in terms of attorneys and legal complexities involved, plus the financial analytics are quite extensive, and many times we have to pay supplemental fees for those things. So marketing can go in excess of $10,500 or more. And you may not close that transaction. As Broker Bob knows, I wiped my tears on one of those. So when the losses are bigger, they can be very detrimental. So the purpose of having the division is to have someone that is doing just that. I do not actively pursue residential whatsoever. And the other thing that it does for you as residential agents is it keeps you in your lane, but without losing out on that opportunity. So it keeps you from getting splintered, where you can focus on your residential business. You run across a commercial transaction, you three-way text it over, you stay in that game. Now, if you want to be included on a few communications, that's fine. Normally, we will inform you on 4 areas: when we connect with the client, when we identify the property, when we go under contract, and we close it up and go, here's your check, boom. So last year in the first quarter alone, we referred out $22,000 to just 2 agents. This year, I believe it was $23,000, and that was just to 2 agents. So there can be a lot of money in that. And the nice thing is it's as easy as a phone call, or somebody sends you something, or it's your client that's an investor that's maybe buying duplexes and triplexes, and now they want to maybe look at a multifamily opportunity. Send it over, let's discuss it. And then the process is just like residential. So it's a win-win or no deal. There are some times where somebody will come to the table with an idea that just doesn't fit the model, or it is so difficult to do that it's a needle in the haystack and we have to turn it down. I've been asked, are there any things that we don't do? Currently, right now, I don't do startups, tattoo parlors, drive-throughs, taco shops, coffee businesses, fitness centers, daycare, or adult daycare. That sounds like a lot, but the reason I'm telling you is that we have over time determined that those businesses right now are so difficult to find that they far outweigh the ability to sustain a viable business because of the task level involved in locating them. But you don't have to determine that. I'd say bring every opportunity to the table. We'll determine whether or not we can proceed with it, and then we keep you informed all at every step of the way. That way you have a win-win where you're not leaving the money on the table. You have a partner and you're able to be included in that first call if you'd like. But a lot of times I have folks go like, well, hey, can I piggyback on and learn? you're not going to learn commercial real estate in a transaction. It is too difficult to learn it in one transaction. However, if you feel that you're getting a lot of it and you're really interested in it, you're thinking of bolting on commercial to an already existing successful residential platform, it certainly can be done. That is how I did it. So if you're interested in becoming a commercial agent or seriously taking a look at that, please do let me know, and I'll let you know what the process is, the associated costs, and the transactional time frame. Last year, I made almost $500,000. It was an incredible year. This year, I'm eating top ramen. It's the reality of commercial real estate. It can take 2 years or more sometimes to close a transaction. So I usually tell folks you've got to have 2 years of income set aside just in case Schmidt happens. So the time frame of closing is nice if you have some residential smattering to keep you afloat as you're learning to be a commercial agent. But in the interim, I am happy to discuss this further with anybody. And again, it's basically set up so that the liability is covered and our brokerage is protected.
So Nikki, talk about the perils of having a large transaction in escrow and it falls out 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to have really thick hair, and now I have just learned to roll with the punches. And the biggest thing is, you talk about, it's a tough residential market, and we just put our nose to the grindstone and we move forward. Residential right now is falling out a little bit. Commercial falls out at 6 times the rate. So out of 10 transactions, 2 might close, and you're not doing any less work to get it there. A lot of it right now is finance, understanding LTV, understanding cap rates, the analysis behind commercial real estate. That all changes like the wind when you have a interest rate situation going on like we do, because we had a buyer in transaction on a big $6 million plus property, and they pulled out 48 hours before closing. And I had over 900 hours in that transaction. It happens, starting over, square one, which of course keeps you from doing other transactions because your time is really laden in doing something like that. The good thing about it is we didn't get into a situation in which we were at risk. We could have sued that buyer. We could have held them to the task. We could have forced them to close, but like residential, then we would have tied our money and time up into getting another buyer. We cut them loose, let them go, and we were able to put that building back under contract immediately, almost immediately, within 30 days, which was a Hail Mary. But now we may be changing our finances or our gross income, which changes the cap rate, which changes the ability for the buyer to buy. So again, we may be back to square one. So all of those factors come into play in terms of financial complexities and legalities. And almost every day I'm on the phone with an attorney about something for some transaction. So it's very, very litigation driven.
So Nikki, if I'm an agent and I am looking for a regular residential business and I want to do commercial referral to you, where is the best area of opportunity for commercial deals right now? What is actually moving in commercial real estate that would be a good referral?
Sure, it's a really good question. I think one I get a lot and you see all the time is everybody eats at restaurants, right? And because of COVID, there are quite a few that have either gone under or not doing well. So if you hear of or know of, somebody either going to downsize or sell, anytime you're in any establishment where you hear they're going to sell, I try to primarily focus on listings. I do not focus on buyers, although I will handle them. Anyone that's moving, downsizing, increasing would be a good one. Anywhere you see that you've been frequently and you're noticing, hey, there's nobody in here anymore, could be that they are going to be moving. Any building that you see that's boarded up, that you see just recently closed, that is another good one. I know most of what you will run across will be a friend that says, I'm thinking about bringing my daycare from my house into a storefront. Those are okay. And I don't want to discourage those, but I have to be realistic that I have 7 daycare clients right now that I just can't place because the provisions for daycare are so specific and difficult. They really need to buy a second gen business, and the majority of people going from a home-based daycare into a storefront, they don't have the money to buy a $2 million or more daycare business. So, and I'll help explain that to you so you understand in particular cases, we just have to say no. Otherwise that person's sitting there waiting for 3 years to try to buy the opportunity.
So agents, when you're doing your lead generation, really don't consider stopping it just if they don't have a residential need.
Right.
You should be asking them, well, what, have a relationship with this prospect or figure out, well, what do they do for a living? You never know if they're a high-powered executive with a company that might be looking for commercial space to expand their company.
That's
So interject that you do commercial as well.
Robert, that's especially true with luxury agents. You know, if you're obviously luxury agents know this, most people that own luxury housing usually own businesses or are part of companies that do any opportunities that surround that. I'm going to use Peggy if I can call you out. Peggy she's our notice of default queen, and she was calling notice of defaults one day, and there was a notice of default on a residential property. She called on them, found out it turned out to be a restaurant that was also attached to a commercial building where they bought the restaurant first, and then they bought the residential building next door, which was CC34, which is a combined use residential commercial. So because this one was residential and they were in notice of default, it opened the door to find out about the whole big package, which was a restaurant. And that notice of default, very painful transaction. It was really long. We tried to save her first. So thank to Peggy. She said, you know, has anyone reached out to try to help you? In all honesty, like, we don't want to see businesses go under. We could find them bridge loans and hard money loans and ways to save them. Great. All the better. When you go to buy your next property, think about us. But we were unable to save her. It ended up going to bankruptcy. They were only going to get $900,000 for their property. We were able to BK them in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve, got it into an auction situation, and she ended up getting 1.7 million instead of 9 and walked away with cash. And we ended up representing the trustees as well. And that came from one residential NOD call, $11,000 for each for 2 different agents.
Thank you. So I say this because I want you guys to think outside the box as we go through. You know, it's a challenging time. Less homes are being sold, but there's still opportunity out there. You just have to keep your ears open to it. I really want to appreciate Nikki's time today. She's always available. I put all of her contact information in the chat box. And she's always willing to help out and have a conversation for your potential leads in any way. And again, think outside the box in your lead gen. It might not always be. If you got a day where I can't find an open house, well, let me go through my database and call people just to get some commercial referral business to the commercial team. Okay. All right, Nikki, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. All right. Moving on. So let's talk about possible mediation or lawsuit. What happens? And I thought I'd just kind of have a conversation with you guys about what we call the anatomy of a lawsuit or anatomy of a mediation. So that if it ever happens to you, you kind of have an idea about what happens, because people go through this real estate business thinking, well, I'll never be sued. Well, you don't never know. There's never not never about being sued. And you never know what will happen and what someone will want to make a claim against. So anytime there's potential litigation or mediation or something that we get involved in, 99% of the time, it comes from the buy side. And typically it is because the buyers get into the house and they might find something wrong with it that they feel that either the seller did not disclose very well, or that the agent didn't guide them through the process about making sure they got the proper inspection on the property. So I bring this up because I want to make sure that you guys are aware when you're in your transactions, these are the pitfalls that you should be aware of when you're in a real estate transaction that there could possibly get you in trouble if you don't make sure you document everything, if it's important, that if it's a material fact about the property. So let's say all of a sudden you close on a home, and we've had litigation that's happened within 6 months of closing, within a year and a half of closing, within 2 years of closing. You never know when, if and when it will happen. So the first and foremost thing that I always tell a person is, first, take a deep breath. Don't worry about it. Because what I see all the time, if and when an agent gets into some type of, well, all of a sudden a buyer wants to sue, the agent starts feeling some responsibility. And honestly, stuff happens. It's just going to happen in real estate. That's the nature of the business. We're in California. Did you know that over 50% of all E&O claims originate out of the state of California? Yes, we're a very litigious state. And unfortunately, that's the nature that we are in the state of California. And our E&O insurance has gone up and up and up since I've become managing broker every year. And every year I'm trying to manage it to keep the costs low and keep you out of court, keep us out of court, keep me out of court. That's why we have a really robust compliance process with Mark Miller. And if you're reading the compliance review messages that he sends out on all of your transactions, you should be reading them to take action on the stuff that he says that you should be doing to protect yourself. So take a deep breath if you get a call, and typically what will happen is your buyer that you sold a home to will call you and say, we've got this leak in our bathroom and can't figure out why, but it's flooded our entire basement, or whatever it is they're claiming. And they're automatically going to point fingers at either you or me or the seller or the other seller. Now it becomes something where it becomes a legal issue. So first thing you do is you reach out to Broker Bob and you discuss the merits of what's going on in that situation. And everything's different. And what typically happens is the first step that we advise the buyer is, if they're talking about wanting to go after the seller, well, now that becomes a legal situation, and we can't give legal advice. So I have a structured process I take you through to make sure that you do and say exactly the right things during this process. And you're making sure that the buyer who is having this claim is given the proper information, and they need to speak to a qualified California real estate attorney in order to decide if they want to take the next steps. So we have to send them there. We can't do anything after escrow closes on a property because agency has stopped. And once agency stopped, we can't do anything beyond that. And of course, you always want to give great service. You want to look like you're helping out. But once it becomes a legal issue, you've got to take a step back. Take that deep breath, consult with me. I'm going to give you the exact wording that you say to every buyer in this situation so that we make sure that you're doing the right thing for them, and that is sending them to an attorney. Make no assurances at all that you're going to be able to fix anything, because we can't. We can't fix it. The seller might not want to fix it if they're going to go after the seller. So make no assurances or assumptions about what they're making a claim is. You got to be extremely, extremely neutral about this, because again, this is the buyer's interpretation of a house they bought, and they feel now that they're a homeowner, they're like, wow, I have a home that's leaking or flooding. And they don't, in some cases, maybe it was never the seller's fault. Maybe it was the fact that it was an older house and it just was something that happened after it closed escrow. But they're going to want to point fingers, and then they get to the attorney, and then the attorney is going to point fingers at everybody if they do decide to move forward. And that's where you get named, I get named, and the listing agent on the other side gets named, and the listing agent gets named, and both brokerages get named, and we all end up in court. And then the process begins. What happens is I've, at this point, have reached out to our E&O carrier. I've spoken with them, and they have now gotten all the documents. Well, let me backtrack. I start compiling all the documents that they need, because they need a list of all the transaction documents that was in this transaction, and they need to start looking through the documents to start building a case if they need to defend us. And 99% of the time, here is what happens when an agent gets a lawsuit, and now I'm putting all the documents together, but guess what's missing? The communication log. Because, and I talk to like this till I'm blue in the face with you guys. The communication log is an email, not a text exchange, an email between you and the buyer or you and the seller about something that could be a material fact about the property that would be important. So for example, let's say you help a buyer buy a house and they got the inspection, and the inspector says And the inspector is just a general inspector, and they pretty much don't know everything that the buyer would need to do, but they'll say, foundation looks weak on the back left corner. We recommend a secondary inspection. That's a red flag. When the general inspector says they recommend a secondary inspection, then you have the conversation with the buyer about, hey, based upon this inspection report, the inspector said that you might want to get a secondary inspection on the foundation and just to have a look at this. And then you go back and you memorialize that conversation in an email. Based upon our conversation, I recommended that we hire a secondary inspector, as we talked about today, and you decided you didn't want to move forward with it. Okay, so you've confirmed that they didn't want to get the secondary inspection. And let's say that now that we have this case and you didn't have this in the communication log, well, the attorneys are going to ask, well, do you have a text exchange about this? And again, 99% of the time, the most important part of the lawsuit, there was never a conversation from that agent to the principal about that material fact of the property that is now ending up in litigation. So that's why I impress upon you guys every time about having a communication log with an email back and forth between you and your principal about anything that is a material fact about the property. What's a material fact? Something that can affect the desirability of the property, especially the sale price. And so what we mostly see in mediations would be foundation issues, plumbing issues, electrical issues, anything that's like the guts of the house. Where we also see mediation happen is where you negotiated some repairs on the property with the seller for the buyer. And the seller went and made the repairs, but they didn't provide evidence or receipts to show that they made the repairs, or the repairs that they made were not actually the repairs that the buyer asked for. In other words, they undercut the repairs. And you didn't check, and neither you nor the buyer checked before close of escrow to make sure the repairs were actually the repairs that were requested. So if you're getting repairs done by a seller, make sure that you double check, and it's in the contract that if a seller makes repairs that the buyer has requested and they agree to it, the seller should provide all the documentation to you and the buyer of the repairs, the cost of the repairs, who made them, and exactly what they did. So if you do get repairs, make sure you document of that, and you get repairs on that. We have a case that we hope will go away, but that's kind of an example about some of the cases that we're in right now where it was repairs that were made and they weren't made properly. So double check your repairs if you did that. Usually leaks are a big thing. So if it's an old house, most of these houses in San Diego were built in the 50s and 60s. They're old houses, especially if you're selling in Metro. And they're going to have some work done on them. So do you remember when we went through post-COVID and we had this rally on homes and prices were going through the roof and buyers were doing everything they can to get the property, but they said they waived inspection, they didn't care, they were just going to buy the house? That's when I as broker knew, well, it's going to happen after all this goes through, because then the buyer's going to have buyer's remorse. And that's kind of what happens. Buyers get buyer's remorse, they've overpaid for the property, and now they want someone to fix it because they have a house that's old. Other things too, again, I want to reiterate that if the buyer feels the seller did not disclose anything, don't agree with them. Just say that's, you just shake your head and you say, still need to speak to an attorney. Keep your communication log in an email. You guys all tend to use your phone as your phone should only be communication. I'll see you at the house at 2:00, or I'll see the inspection at 2:00. But anything that's a material fact with that seller or buyer should actually be in an email. And then also always remember just to breathe. I see a lot of agents when they get into their first mediation or arbitration, they freak out, rightfully so. it does ruin their mindset in their head. They're like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. You're not in trouble, but it does have a role to play in their business and their potential of finding new business. Because one, they're focused on getting all their communication stuff put together because they didn't do a very good job of that during the transaction. And they're freaking out that they did something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. It just happened. You know, it's an old house. Houses need TLC. And you did the best you could through the transaction. In some cases, it just happens. And whether you did everything right, the buyer might decide that they want to go after everybody. That's what we're seeing in some of the cases. And again, I want to reiterate again where you guys can get in a lot of trouble right now. And I will keep talking about this till I'm blue in the face. In regards to helping buyers, or I'm sorry, homeowners of homes that want to lease the property and they ask you to put it in the MLS. That's called a lease listing. You can only do the lease listing, put it in the MLS, and that's it. You cannot screen tenants. You cannot take deposits. You cannot take applications. You cannot use any of the documents and zip forms that are under property management. In other words, you can't use the lease in zip forms with Keller Williams' name on it because we don't want our name on any of it, because tenants in the state of California have much more power than landlords. It is horrible to be a landlord right now. And we're in a case right now that costs an agent the $10,000 E&O deductible for something very, very simple. Matter of fact, if I was you guys, I would stray away from dealing with anything tenant related, especially since we're in the middle of a housing crisis where there's not enough housing in the market to accommodate everybody that wants to rent or buy something. And there are tenants that actually work the system and know what they're doing, and they want to be able to sue the landlord if the landlord does not take their application for the property. So do yourself a favor. Don't waste your time, energy, and effort on tenants. If you have a landlord that wants you to market it in the MLS, you can do that, but that's all you can do. The one agent and I hopefully will have this deal settled next week, and they've learned their lesson. They're like, this one little thing cost me a lot of money and I'll never do it again. So I didn't really want to scare everybody. I just wanted to walk you guys through where I deal with on the back end and give you a little bird's eye view into what I'm dealing with legal cases in the back end. And this is what I do, but it's important for you guys to know so you don't end up there as well too. Keep doing what you're doing. Again, look for opportunity. There's lots of it out there, especially in the commercial realm. If you're doing your lead generation, congratulations, Peggy, on getting that referral over to the commercial team and making some referral money off of that. Really good on that. You never know where it's going to be. It's all about asking the right questions when you're doing your lead generation. So even if you are calling expired leads and you got the wrong number, I'm sure that person has a real estate need. So think of that too. Think outside the box. That is it, Sarah. Back to you to close it out.
Broker Bob, thank you for all that goodness. I said knowledge is power. It is not scary. It is necessary. And ignorance is not bliss, y'all. Ignorance is costly in this industry. So be empowered, be informed, and be excited to go to the Facebook page and see that I've already shared all the graphic pieces I was telling you about while we were on this meeting. So go share knowledge and power in your marketing pieces. Get inspired and talk to people who are willing to talk to you to make more business. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Don't be too spooky in your costumes. Make it awesome. Bye, y'all.
You my dreams.